I'm sure you have all heard, for the first time in history, a former president is facing federal criminal charges. So let's go ahead and check out the cover of the New York Daily News, showing Trump with the headline, "Indicted Again." Meantime, the New York Post went with this headline, "Hail to the Thieves," referring to both Trump and President Biden. Former President Donald Trump is expected to turn himself into this federal courthouse in Miami next Tuesday. He is facing 7 criminal counts in connection with this handling of classified documents. Some of the charges include retaining classified documents in violation of the Espionage Act, conspiracy to obstruct justice, making false statements, and 4 other charges. In a video posted to his social media, Trump is maintaining his innocence. Let's take a look at what he said.
They can't stop because it's election interference at the highest level. There's never been anything like what's happened. I'm an innocent man. I'm an innocent person.
For more on this, we're joined by civil rights attorney and legal analyst, Areva Martin. Thank you so much for being here, Areva.
Hi, Corey.
Hi, my love.
Hello. So let's talk about these charges, because how serious are they really? And do you think the Department of Justice has a good case?
I think the charges are very serious. Just as we were going to air, this 49-page indictment, federal indictment that was handed down by a grand jury in Miami was unsealed. It contains just some remarkable allegations about Trump's conduct that clearly indicates he was never fit to be president of the United States. Some of the allegations include him showing confidential classified documents to a writer that was involved in the writing of a book that he was publishing after his presidency ended. Boxes of classified and confidential information being stored in a shower and a bathroom at his private social club in Florida. I haven't even been able to get through the entire 49 pages because page after page is just replete with information suggesting that Trump did not take very seriously his role as president or as a former president that had access to this very confidential information. These charges are very serious. They do, if convicted, he could be facing jail time. This is a seismic event in terms of both political and legal for the United States to have a former president indicted on federal charges.
So let's take a look at the other side. Let's talk about Trump's defense, because his lawyers argue that the other presidents in the past have taken classified documents without criminal charges. They also say Trump declassified all of these documents that you're talking about. What do you think of these arguments?
Well, let's start with the declassified. That's a red herring. This issue is not about whether these documents were classified or not. It's basically irrelevant for the criminal charges that have been brought against him. The real issue is these documents contain very sensitive national security information, and that's what makes this a violation of the Espionage Act, and that's what makes this such a serious case against Donald Trump. And as it relates to the other presidents, we have never had a president engage in the kind of obstruction of justice that Donald Trump has engaged in. Yes, there were documents, classified documents, sensitive documents found at the house and office of Joe Biden, but what did he do? He said, "Come in, federal government, retrieve the documents. What can I do to help you? I'm here to answer any questions. I'm here to cooperate." That's what Mike Pence did. Donald Trump did the opposite. He engaged in more than a year of hiding documents, of concealing documents, of moving documents around, and then making false statements about the documents that he had in his possession. So that's a false equivalency when Republicans try to say that this is the same as it relates to Joe Biden or even Mike Pence. They're just absolutely not the same.
Well, you know, a lot of people that defend Trump will say that this whole investigation is just a partisan witch hunt, and it's another example of the Trump derangement syndrome, which is a term that's been floating around for 5 or 6 years now. So what would you say to that?
I say again, this is a more of the deflection that we've seen by Donald Trump and the small and growing even smaller group of people that support him. The reality is Jack Smith, the special counsel, is not a Joe Biden appointee. He is not Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland appointed a career prosecutor, Jack Smith, to make sure that the Department of Justice was insulated from any claim of this being a political act. This is the deal. Donald Trump wants to engage in criminal activity, and those that support him say that while he was in office as president, he couldn't be prosecuted, and say that after he was out of office, he couldn't be prosecuted. They would have Donald Trump treated as some kind of king.
Yes.
And the reality is that's not the way our democracy works. He's not above the law. And if he engages in criminal conduct, he has to be held accountable. Yes. And someone has to hold him accountable. And that is Special Counsel Jack Smith,
who I have a little bit of a crush on, I have to be honest. Areva, it's really, really good to see you. I wanted to ask you, what do you think the chances are here that Trump will actually serve any time in prison? And also the take on the weaponization of the Department of Justice, when really 23 Floridians are the ones that indicted Trump. The Department of Justice didn't do anything.
Department of Justice didn't do anything. Absolutely, you are correct. This was a grand jury, and Donald Trump has been treated no differently than anyone else. There are cases of individuals. Think about General Petraeus. There was someone in the armed forces just a couple of weeks ago who was indicted on some very similar charges. There have been charges brought against individuals for the willful retention of classified documents before. He is not the first person to face charges for the conduct that he engaged in. I do think that jail time is a possibility for Donald Trump. These are serious charges. They carry jail time, and he could be the first former president ever to be convicted and to be sentenced to jail.
Wow.
Okay, so let's talk about what could potentially be the million-dollar question. What happens if Trump gets elected? What happens to any of the charges or indictments against him?
Nothing. Our Constitution did not. I don't think the founding fathers could have anticipated that the Republican parties would elevate to the top of their party someone like Donald Trump, basically a con artist and a criminal. The Constitution doesn't forbid someone from running for president or being elected president while under indictment, and even if they are convicted and sentenced to jail. It would obviously be a constitutional crisis, would be a crisis for our democracy. But at this moment, there's nothing in the Constitution that prohibits him from continuing his campaign for presidents.
Wow. Former President Trump isn't alone. President Biden is also facing allegations that he himself was involved in a foreign bribery scheme. Areva is going to stick around. We can't wait to get her take on all of this. Thank you for at least making this digestible for the normal human.
This news just broke.
Yes, and this news just broke. She's reading the Unsealed as we speak. Thank you, Areva. We will see you soon. We'll be right back.
Right.
Welcome back to DBL. Civil rights attorney and legal analyst Areva Martin is here with us. And Areva, we want to get your take on President Biden, because House Republicans are alleging that Biden himself was involved in a bribery scheme. They say that they've seen an unverified FBI document from a credible source that claims he and his son, Hunter Biden, both received a $5 million payment from a Ukrainian oil company to help call off an investigation into the firm. Now, the president was asked about this yesterday. Take a look at what Biden had to say.
Bribery allegation. Congresswoman Nancy Mace says there's damning evidence in the FBI file that you sold out the country. Do you have a response to the congressional Republicans?
Where's the money? I'm joking.
Mr. President,
it's a bunch of malarkey.
So, Areva, what's your take on this news, and is it a bunch of malarkey?
That's so funny. I had not seen the president's response, but as I was reading the Fox News article myself, that was the first question that came to my mind. Where is the money? Because if you believe what House Republicans are claiming, you also have to believe that Joe Biden committed tax fraud, that he committed a financial disclosure fraud when he had to submit his financial disclosure documents in running for president, because if he received $5 million as a bribe, that money has to be someplace, and he would have to account for the money. So this is so much bigger than bribery. And, unless the Republicans can produce some firm and substantiated evidence, one, that the money was received, that the money was deposited in some kind of account, I think it is a bunch of malarkey.
So, Areva, I think a question everybody has on their mind, especially Republicans, do you think President Biden will face the same scrutiny over this that President Trump or former President Trump has faced?
I think absolutely. I think Merrick Garland has proven and has demonstrated that he is independent of the White House, and he is going to go and follow evidence and go where the facts lead him. And if there is substantiated evidence that Joe Biden has $5 million socked away in some secret bank account, Merrick Garland will appoint a special counsel, and there will be a fair and thorough investigation. I have no doubt that Merrick Garland is not going to politicize this and is not going to give Joe Biden any special treatment. But we know that there has to be more than some unsubstantiated claim from some anonymous tipster in order for there to be a credible investigation launched into the President of the United States.
This is fantastic stuff. Thank you so much for sticking with us and answering all of our questions. DBL Nation, all of ours.
Thank you.
All of ours. Be sure to check out Areva Martin on her social media at Areva Martin. Thanks again. It was lovely, lovely seeing you again.